This video is brought to you by Squarespace, where you can build your own little home on the internet, all on one platform. The sugaring queen has returned because between YouTube and TikTok, I understand you still have a ton of questions about sugaring. So I told you guys to send me your questions on Instagram, and this is what you asked. So number one, what is everything that you need to get started and nothing extra? 1, sugar. And no, it doesn't have to be this. There are lots of varieties you can use, including jaggery. 2, water. Yes, you can use tap water. Anything that you have access to is fine. 3, your acid of choice, which all options will be down in the description box, a container to store it in. But also you're going to need some type of powder, and I recommend cornstarch. Why? Because cornstarch is the #1 ingredient in baby powders. So why not go straight to the source, you know? And by the way, also for reference, this video is divided into chapters, so you can find them in the description box as well. All you got to do is click on the timestamp and it'll jump to exactly where you want to go, or you can click on the chapters themselves. Then no doubt the second most common question, or shall I say statement, is, well, the color looks fine, but blank doesn't seem to be right. So this is my opportunity to again say that color is not important. You did hear me make reference to it in my initial video, as in the first video I ever made about sugar wax whatsoever. So I didn't yet know the science behind it. So disregard all mention of it, okay? Color, not important. In fact, the color doesn't have to change at all. It could actually stay completely clear. But what about temperature? Because this is also something that I have mentioned in previous videos. However, technically, I don't want you to go by that either, which I'm sure at this point sounds really frustrating and confusing, but I'm going to clear it up. Because if you're in the same boat as JD, then you realize that those ranges that are provided for the different types of sugar that you can make are no longer going to be accurate. Because water will no longer boil at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Instead, the higher your altitude, the number keeps changing. The reason that that is important is because obviously a quarter of this recipe is water. Remember, those charts are a general guide. You aren't just given one number, you're given a range, meaning it could be anywhere between here and here. So you're not going by color and you're not going by temperature, or maybe you don't even have a thermometer. So what do you do now? How do I compute this without becoming a mathlete? The answer is you test it, because that you can always rely on. However, don't worry, you can still keep your thermometer, because I am going to show you a tool, or rather a method, to get consistent results. And I'm only answering about, I think, like 28 or 29 questions today, but there was definitely a lot more, and I generally get quite a few on a daily basis. So I've decided that, you know what, I'm also going to include like a database on the blog, because I really never intended for it to just be about food, basically just like my YouTube channel. I like there to be variety. I feel like not everyone knows that I have an entire playlist dedicated to sugaring, and if you're watching a specific video, you may not know that there's a sequel to it. But in case you're like, what is she even talking about? I do have a blog, abetweene.com, which is currently under construction. And thanks to Squarespace, it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of it. I don't have to learn how to do certain things from scratch, like creating a mailing list. So if you're also working on a project and you're not quite sure of the launch date, you can do the same thing. All you have to do is find the template and it's a click away. And there are so many more functions that work exactly the same way. So if you want to build your own little home on the internet, make sure you go to squarespace.com to start your free trial. And whenever you're ready to get started, you can use my code for 10% off. So for the sake of my previous argument, let's just wait until the color gets to where it looks about right. On the left is the batch that I just made. On the right is a batch that I've made prior. But would you believe me if I told you that the sugar on the right is undercooked? Because it is. But the one on the left isn't right either, because that one I overcooked. And look, they're the exact, and I do mean the exact same color. What you're gonna do is when you notice that your sugar has completely dissolved, meaning you don't see any crystals anymore, you can start testing it. So making sure that you take your sugar off of the flame, you're gonna take a little sample and put that into a bowl of cold water. You can even use ice to make sure that it's really cold, because what this is gonna do is rapidly cool down the sugar. And why this is important is because you cannot tell the true consistency of your sugar wax until it is no longer hot. And these results are what you don't want. As you can see, the sugar has basically disappeared. And if I attempt to pick it up, I can't really do that. So we're gonna keep cooking, because these results have told me that it's not done. And basically you're gonna keep doing this periodically as you cook. But we still have a little dilemma, and that is that I don't fully trust this test. The reason why is because we're taking our sugar and we're submerging it in water. That's a problem, because water actually melts your sugar. So that means that this test is gonna make your sugar feel softer than it actually is. See how it's not really sticking to my fingers? That's because they're coated in water. So instead, you can just take that spoonful and let it sit to the side. Or if you have a marble or stainless steel countertop, you can let a dollop of your sugar rest there. And then you're gonna give them about a minute to a minute and a half to cool. Then you can pick up that sample, which will give you a more accurate reading. Already, you'll notice that my results look way different. So here's the ultimate test. Try to use that sample, not the one that you submerged in water, but again, the one that you took off the spoon or left on your countertop. Does it work? As you can see, it's not there yet. We're gonna keep cooking. We want those consistent results, right? So before you actually take your sample, what I want you to do is also quickly make a note of the temperature. So here, I take the temperature, then I take a sample. And the reason why I take it off of the flame is because you don't want to continue cooking it while you're waiting for your test results. Because that might be it. That might be the time that you get it at the perfect consistency, but you've already let it overcook. So despite there's still some residual heat being held by the pan, the temperature is still going to drop. Versus if I still had it on the heat source, then it would definitely be spiking. Have I successfully made a sugar paste? Yes, I actually have, but this is still undercooked for what I was trying to achieve. So when I tell you guys that you have undercooked or overcooked something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done anything wrong. It just means that you're a little bit short or maybe slightly overachieved what you were going for. Because from the videos that you guys DM me, you're usually a whole lot closer than you think you are. When your sugar finally reaches the consistency that you were going for, that is when you take that temperature that you previously documented and you use that for future reference. So now, when you make your second, third, and future batches, you don't have to do this process again because you already know what temperature you should cook to. Or if you still don't have a thermometer, you at least now know how to test whether or not your sugar is done without running the risk of overcooking it, which you'll know you've done because when it cools, it gets way too hard. So if you're trying to achieve a firm paste that you can use with just your hands, utilizing the flicking method, then this is what that will look like. Because as you can see, it is quite literally firm, but it's still soft enough for me to easily manipulate. And I'm sorry guys, I totally intended to cover more questions in this video, which explains my previous statement about answering 29 questions. I have actually answered them, but I'm feeling like we should probably split this up. And ultimately, I feel like that would be helpful because then you won't have like an overdose of information. Check out the description box for all of the sugaring playlists. I have a playlist dedicated to making sugar, and then I have a separate playlist dedicated to using sugar on different body parts, including the legs, bikini area, underarms, and face. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed already, do that, and I'll see you in the next one.